Day 8 Patriarchs, Genesis 16 through 17, Job 5 through 6, Proverbs 1 verses 20 through 33. Let's begin. Genesis 16:17. Now Sarai, the wife of Abram, had not conceived children, but, having an Egyptian handmaid named Hagar, she said to her husband, Behold, the Lord has closed me, lest I give birth. Enter to my handmaid, so that perhaps I may receive sons of her at least. And when he agreed to her supplication, she took Hagar the Egyptian, her handmaid, 10 years after they began to live in the land of Canaan, and she gave her to her husband as a wife. And he entered to her. But when she saw that she had conceived, she despised her mistress. And Sarai said to Abram, You have acted unfairly against me. I gave my handmaid into your bosom, who, when she saw that she had conceived, held me in contempt. May the Lord judge between me and you. Abram responded to her by saying, Behold, your handmaid is in your hand to treat as it pleases you. And so, when Sarai afflicted her, she took flight. And when the angel of the Lord had found her, near the fountain of water in the wilderness, which is on the way to Shur in the desert, he said to her, Hagar, handmaid of Sarai, where have you come from? And where will you go? And she answered, I flee from the face of Sarai my mistress. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Return to your mistress, and humble yourself under her hand. And again he said, I will multiply your offspring continuously, and they will not be numbered because of their multitude. But thereafter he said, Behold, you have conceived, and you will give birth to a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. He will be a wild man. His hand will be against all, and all hands will be against him. And he will pitch his tents away from the region of all his brothers. Then she called upon the name of the Lord who had spoken to her, You are the God who has seen me. For she said, Certainly, here I have seen the back of the one who sees me. Because of this, she called that well, the well of the one who lives and who sees me. The same is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar gave birth to a son for Abram, who called his name Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar gave birth to Ishmael for him. In truth, after he began to be 99 years of age, the Lord appeared to him. And he said to him, I am the Almighty God. Walk in my sight and become complete. And I will set my covenant between me and you. And I will multiply you very exceedingly. Abram fell prone on his face. And God said to him, I am, and my covenant is with you, and you will be the father of many nations. No longer will your name be called Abram, but you will be called Abraham, for I have established you as the father of many nations. And I will cause you to increase very greatly, and I will set you among the nations, and kings will come forth from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you, and with your offspring after you in their generations, by a perpetual covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you. And I will give to you and to your offspring the land of your sojourn, all the land of Canaan, as an eternal possession, and I will be their God. Again God said to Abraham, And you therefore shall keep my covenant, and your offspring after you in their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall observe, between me and you, and your offspring after you, all the males among you shall be circumcised. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, so that it may be a sign of the covenant between me and you. An infant of 8 days will be circumcised among you, every male in your generations. So also servants born to you, as well as those bought, shall be circumcised, even those who are not of your stock. And my covenant shall be with your flesh as an eternal covenant. The male, the flesh of whose foreskin will not be circumcised, that soul shall be eliminated from his people. For he has made my covenant void. God said also to Abraham, Your wife Sarai you shall not call Sarai but Sarah. And I will bless her, and from her I will give you a son, whom I will bless, and he will be among the nations, and the kings of the peoples will rise from him. Abraham fell on his face, and he laughed, saying in his heart, Do you think a son can be born to a 100-year-old man? And will Sarah give birth at the age of 90? And he said to God, If only Ishmael would live in your sight. And God said to Abraham, your wife Sarah shall give birth to a son, and you shall call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him as a perpetual covenant, and with his offspring after him. Likewise, concerning Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I will bless and enlarge him, and I will multiply him greatly. He will produce 12 leaders, and I will make him into a great nation. Yet in truth, I will establish my covenant with Isaac, to whom Sarah will give birth for you at this time next year. And when he had finished speaking with him, God ascended from Abraham. Then Abraham took his son Ishmael, and all who were born in his house, and all whom he had bought, every male among the men of his house, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskin promptly, the very same day, just as God had instructed him. Abraham was 99 years old when he circumcised the flesh of his foreskin. And his son Ishmael had completed 13 years at the time of his circumcision. On the very same day, Abraham was circumcised with his son Ishmael. And all the men of his house, those born in his house, as well as those who were bought, even the foreigners, were circumcised with him. Job 5:6. Therefore call, if there are any who will respond to you, and turn to one or another of the saints. Truly, anger condemns the foolish to death, and envy kills the petty. I have seen a fool with a strong root, and I have cursed his excellence without hesitation. His sons will be far from prosperity, and will be crushed at the gate, and there will be none who can rescue them. Their harvest, the starving will eat. The armed man will rob him, and the thirsty will drink his resources. Nothing on earth occurs without a reason, and sorrow does not rise from the earth. Man is born to labor, and the bird to fly. Therefore, because of this, I will beg the Lord, and place my eloquence before God. He does great and unfathomable and miraculous things without number. He gives rain over the face of the earth and irrigates all things with the waters. He places the humble on high and encourages the grieving towards health. He dispels the thoughts of the spiteful, lest their hands be able to complete what they had begun. He catches the wise in their cleverness, and dissipates the counsel of the perverse. They will encounter darkness in the daytime, and they will grope at midday just as in the night. Thereafter, he will act to save the needy from the sword of their mouth, and the poor from the hand of the violent. And there will be hope for those in need, for iniquity will diminish its speech. Blessed is the man whom God corrects, therefore, do not reject the chastisement of the Lord. For he wounds and he cures, he strikes and his hands will heal. He will deliver you into 6 tribulations, and in the 7th, evil will not touch you. During famine, he will rescue you from death, and during war, from the hand of the sword. You will be hidden from the scourge of the tongue, and you will not fear calamity when it arrives. In desolation and in famine, you will laugh, and you will not dread the beasts of the earth. For you are in harmony with the stones of the land, and the beasts of the earth will make peace with you. And you will know that your home has peace, and concerning your appearance, you will not sin. Likewise, you will know that your offspring will be manifold, and your progeny will be like the grass of the earth. You will enter the grave with abundance, just as a crop of wheat is gathered in its time. Behold, this is just as we have found it, which you have heard, walk it through your mind. But Job, responding, said, I wish that my sins, for which I deserve wrath, and the calamity that I endure, were weighed out on a balance. Compared to the sand of the sea, they would appear heavier, and so my words are full of sorrow. For the arrows of the Lord are in me, my spirit drinks of their indignation, and the terrors of the Lord are soldiers against me. Will the wild ass bray when he has grass? Or will the ox bellow when he stands before a full manger? Or can one eat bland food, which is not seasoned with salt? Or can anyone taste that which, if tasted, causes death? The things that my soul was unwilling to touch before, now, because of anguish, are my foods. Who will grant that my petition may arrive and that God may bestow on me what I expect? And that he who, at first, had crushed me, will let loose his hand and cut me down. And may this be my consolation, that in afflicting me with sorrow, although he might not be lenient with me, I still do not contradict the words of the Holy One. For what is my strength, that I may continue? Or what is my goal, so that I may act patiently? My strength is not the strength of stones, nor is my flesh made of bronze. Behold, there is no help for me in myself, and my loved ones also have withdrawn from me. He who takes away mercy from his friend abandons the fear of the Lord. My brethren have disregarded me, like a torrent that passes swiftly through the steep valleys. Those who fear frost, snow will rush over them. At that time, when they are scattered, they will perish, and when it becomes hot, they will be freed from their place. The paths of their steps are entangled, they will walk in vain and will perish. Consider the paths of Thema, the ways of Saba, and wait a little while. They have been thrown into confusion, just as I had hoped. They have even come to me and are overwhelmed with shame. Now you have arrived, and merely by seeing my affliction you are afraid. Did I say, bring to me and give to me from your necessities? Or, free me from the hand of the enemy and rescue me from the hand of the strong? Teach me, and I will be silent, and if by chance I have been ignorant of anything, instruct me. Why have you diminished the words of truth, when there is none of you who is able to offer proof against me? You prepare speeches as so much noise, and you offer words into the wind. You encroach upon the orphan, and you strive to undermine your friend. Such is true, so finish what you have begun. Listen closely, and see if I lie. Respond, I beg you, without contention, and speaking what is just, pass judgment. And you will not find iniquity on my tongue, nor will foolishness resound in my throat. Proverbs 1 verses 20 through 33. Wisdom forewarns far and wide, she bestows her voice in the streets. She cries out at the head of crowds, at the entrance of the gates of the city, she offers her words, saying, Little ones, how long will you choose to be childish, and how long will the foolish desire what is harmful to themselves, and how long will the imprudent hate knowledge? Be converted by my correction. Lo, I will offer my spirit to you, and I will reveal my words to you. For I called, and you refused. I extended my hand, and there was no one who watched. You have despised all my counsels, and you have neglected my rebukes. Similarly, I will ridicule you at your demise, and I will mock you, when that which you feared shall overcome you. When sudden calamity rushes upon you, and your demise advances like a tempest, when tribulation and anguish overcome you. Then they will call to me, and I will not heed, they will arise in the morning, and not find me. For they held hatred for discipline, and they would not accept the fear of the Lord. They would not consent to my counsel, but they detracted from all of my corrections. Therefore, they shall eat the fruit of their way, and they shall have their fill of their own counsels. The loathing of the little ones shall destroy them, and the prosperity of the foolish shall perish them. But whoever will listen to me shall rest without terror, and shall have full enjoyment of abundance, without fear of evils.